more than all men. So what if the resurrection never happened? Well, here's what Paul said would result. Our faith is futile was the first thing he described in that paragraph of response. The word futile means useless. It means empty, vain, of no value. Our faith would be futile. It would be empty, of no value. The Christian faith without the resurrection is meaningless. He also says that we would still be in our sins. If Christ's death was the final chapter of his life, if he didn't conquer death and come back to life, then he would not have had the ability, the power to forgive us of our sins. We'd still be in our sins, but be lost forever there in that grave. Paul says that we would never see our loved ones again either. What a sad thought that as we put people we love into a grave, that would be the end, that we would not have an opportunity to re-engage with that person again. Paul says if the resurrection didn't happen, that would be a result. And finally, he said we should be pitied. We've searched for meaning in the wrong place. We've made a false assumption about where to find life, about what cause to give ourselves to. We're deluded. We should be pitied. He goes on in the chapter in verse 32 to say, if the dead are not raised, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Life loses its meaning without the resurrection. Everything is just blowing in the wind. It's like just hearing silence. It's just getting no satisfaction, although you're trying and trying and trying. The character from the movie The Bucket List, Edward Cole, played by Jack Nicholson, paraphrased this verse, we live, we die, the wheels on the bus go round and round and round. It was his commentary on life. That's basically what life would be without the resurrection. But what difference does the resurrection make? Well, Paul points to that in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20. But Christ has indeed been raised from the dead. The truth is that Christ has been raised up. He's the first in a long legacy of resurrections that will happen. Now, it's interesting in his response here that he's not shaming them for their fears. He's not guilting them for the doubt that they have. Nor is he trying to prove with some logical argument that the resurrection exists. All he does is just point to an empty tomb. Remember that God raised the Son. Everything hinges on that. So the resurrection, it makes a significant difference in our faith. Just take his negatives and turn them positively. Our faith does have meaning. We do have forgiveness of our sins. We will see our loved ones who have died. We can be certain about our own future. All this combines to give us this cause to live for. There's good news from the graveyard because Jesus Christ has come back from the dead. Now that's something he had promised he would do. He had told his followers, in 3 days after I die, I'll come back to life. He can be trusted. He did as he had indicated. It gives us reason and a cause to live for. While channel surfing, I've come across the World Series of Poker on ESPN. Some of you probably caught that along the way. They play this game called No Limit Texas Hold'em. Now, the game is an amazing study in strategy and human behavior. Sometimes the pots get huge, have over $1 million worth of chips out in the middle of this thing. Now, in every game, in this high-stakes game of poker, a defining moment comes that separates the winners from the losers. You never know when that moment's going to happen because it's determined by the individual players. But there's a moment when a player says two determinative words, all in. Now, typically, he gets a hand that he thinks is good, okay? And he takes all of his chips, he shoves them out to the middle of the table, he turns his cards over and lays them up for everybody to see. And normally in dramatic fashion, he stands up behind his hand of cards. So going all in means that he's risking everything on just that one hand. If you win it all. If you lose it all. So it's a very high drama, determinative moment in that game. Now, you can't win a tournament if you're not willing to go all in at some point. You've got to pick the right moment. You've got to believe in your hand that you're playing. You've got to believe that your hand will beat the other options and opportunities that you have. And you don't know whether you'll win or lose until you've gone all in. Now, some of these early Christ followers who lived during this time of Christ's death and burial and resurrection, they were frozen in fear. And yet after the resurrection occurred, they encountered Jesus Christ, they pushed all their chips right into the middle, and they went all in. They gave everything they had to this cause to live for. They were transformed into these fearless men that we read about all through the New Testament. They said things like, "For me to live is Christ, to die is gain." There's a verse in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 9 that says, "For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him." And to paraphrase in the context of this message, he's looking for those who have gone all in. Not people who are perfect. That's not what the verse says. Direction in life is much more important than perfection. He's looking for people that have sold out, they've embraced fully the resurrection, and they're living all in for this cause of Jesus Christ. Now, God is still in the resurrection business. I could take you and go up and down every row of this room, and I could introduce you to people who have experienced resurrection in their lives. Going all in, it means to leave certain things behind. And I could introduce you to people that have left remarkable things behind when they shoved everything in and went all in. I could show you people that have left pornography behind. I could show you people that have left a tendency to procrastinate behind. I could introduce you to people that have left drugs and alcohol behind. I can show you people that have left financial and relational secrets behind. I can introduce you to people that have left materialism behind. When they push all in, all those things they leave behind. Bitterness, shame, guilt, suicidal thoughts, anger, gossip, all those things they've left behind because of the resurrection. Now here's why they go all in. Here is the resurrection story in 100 words. I've counted, okay? 100 words. Now it's so critical. I want you just to read it out loud with me, would you? You can see the words clearly on your screen. So we'll just read in unison, read them all together out loud, just to hear ourselves read this resurrection story. You ready? All right, let's read together. But very early on Sunday morning, the women came to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. They found that the stone covering the entrance had been rolled aside. So they went in, but they couldn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. They were puzzled. Suddenly, two men appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes. The women were terrified and bowed low before them. Then the men asked, "Why are you looking into the tomb for someone who is alive? He is here, and is risen from the dead." Incredible, huh? 100 words of God showing up. 100 words of power. 100 words of hope. Now, in a parallel passage, the story keeps going. The two guys we just read about that talked to the women, they're speaking again here in Matthew 28. They say to the women, "Then go quickly, tell the disciples, he's risen from the dead and he's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him." Now, I've told you So the women hurried away from the tomb. Can't you just see them running and sprinting? They're afraid, the text says, yet they're filled with